It was a warm May afternoon in Columbus, Ohio, in 2025, when J.D. Vance came up on the stage at a Republican rally. The 40-year-old American vice president looked confident and bold. "You know what's funny?" he said, making the crowd laugh. "These African countries keep talking about sovereignty and dignity, man. Half of them can't even get electricity to their capital cities." The audience burst into laughter. Vance went on, "And now this kid from Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, wants to lecture America, a country that's not even on the map. Please." He waved his hands in a mocking way. Burkina, don't even know how to say that place. It probably doesn't even have proper internet. Cameras recorded every word, every smirk. Within seconds, parts of the speech were going viral on social media, with hashtags like #VanceVSAfrica trending. Across the ocean, in Ouagadougou, it was EEPM, when Moussa Kabor, an aide to Ibrahim Traoré, got a notification on his phone. He watched the video 3 times, then called the president. "Mr. President, you need to see this right away." Ibrahim, who was reviewing economic reports in his private office, answered immediately. "What happened, Moussa?" U.S. Vice President. J.D. Vance just mocked Burkina Faso and you. It was very disrespectful. Ibrahim sighed. After the incident with Kamala Harris, he had hoped Americans had learned the value of mutual respect. But clearly, he was wrong. "Send me the video and call a meeting for tomorrow morning. This time, our response will be different." The next morning brought a wave of anger across Africa. The video of J.D. Vance mocking Burkina Faso spread like wildfire, causing outrage in every African capital. By 11 a.m., Ibrahim Traoré was in his conference room, along with his cabinet members. "Gentlemen," he said, with a serious look, "this time, it's not just a diplomatic issue. This is mockery and total disrespect." Dr. Alonso Edego, the foreign minister, was showing global reactions on his tablet. "Sir, 31 African countries have shown solidarity." The Senegalese president called it a colonial insult. South Africa's leader talked about American racism. Fatimata Sowadogo, the economy minister, added, "There's bad news, sir. Since last night, 3 American investors have cancelled meetings. They fear a bad reputation." Ibrahim hit the table hard with his hand. "That's exactly why we must respond, not because of pride, but for the dignity of our people and of Africa." Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., President Trump was furious at his vice president. "Jay, what the hell were you thinking?" he shouted. During a private meeting in the Oval Office, "We just repaired our relationship with Africa after the Kamala mess." Vance tried to explain. "Mr. President, it was just a joke to lighten the mood. I didn't think it would go this far." Joke. The kid from Burkina Faso became a global hero after calmly destroying Kamala, and now you think mocking him is funny. Trump shook his head. "You're going to have to clean up this mess by yourself." Back in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim was getting phone calls from world leaders, all offering their support. "Ibrahim, my brother," said Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa, "all of Africa is behind you again. How will you respond this time?" Ibrahim Traoré had spent his morning working on a strategy, one that was very different from the calm and classy response he had given Kamala Harris. This time J.D. Vance had crossed a line, and it required a clearer and stronger reaction. "Yakuba," he told his press secretary, "I want you to plan something special. This won't be a regular press conference. This will be something the whole world will remember." Yakuba Sowadogo smiled. "What are you thinking, Mr. President?" A direct video recorded here at the palace. No filters, no excess diplomacy. I'll show JD Vance who we really are. As the team got everything ready, Ibrahim carefully reviewed JD Vance's background. A Yale graduate, author of a book on poverty in America. A former senator from Ohio, now vice president. Interesting, Ibrahim said. He writes about poverty, but mocks countries that are fighting poverty. In Washington, the White House was in damage control mode. The press secretary faced a storm of tough questions from reporters. Does Vice President Vance stand by his comments? Will you apologize to Burkina Faso? How does this affect US-Africa relations? The answers were vague, showing how uncomfortable the administration was. On American social media, the reaction was split. Trump supporters defended Vance. He was just speaking the truth about those countries. But critics pushed back. What a disgrace marking nations that are progressing. In Ohio, Vance's home state, universities began holding debates about the controversy. At Ohio State University, African students protested peacefully, holding signs that read, "Respect our leaders. Africa is no joke." Back in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim was finishing his speech. His wife Ajara was proofreading it. "It's perfect," she said. "Firm but polite, sharp but respectful." This time, Ibrahim said, "I'm going to teach him a lesson he'll never forget, but without lowering our values." At 3 p.m. in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traoré sat in front of the cameras in his presidential office. Behind him, the Burkina Faso flag waved gently. He wore a dark, sharp suit and spoke directly to the camera with a calm, confident smile. "Hello, Mr. J.D. Vance," he began, his voice steady but powerful. "I saw your speech in Ohio, where you made fun of Burkina Faso first. Thank you, you've given me a chance to educate you publicly." The camera captured his every facial expression. "You said our country doesn't even appear on the map. That's funny, coming from someone who probably mixes up Burkina Faso with Bangladesh." Ibrahim paused, letting the message sink in. "Let me help with some basic geography. We are in West Africa, surrounded by 6 countries, have over 21 million people, and our history goes farther back than your country's." He pointed to some papers on his desk. "You mocked our electricity, but in the last 3 years, we've increased our energy production by 400%. Today, 89% of our people have electricity. Meanwhile, in your state of Ohio, 340,000 people still don't have reliable power." Numbers flashed on the screen as Ibrahim continued. "You laughed about our internet, but 94% of Burkina Faso has 4G coverage. Our youth have built apps used in 12 African countries. Meanwhile, 21% of Ohio still lacks proper broadband." Ibrahim leaned forward. "What surprises me most, Mr. Vance, is your lack of geography knowledge. You couldn't even say our country's name right. For a US vice president, that's, how do I say this nicely, ... embarrassing." He smiled. Lightly, "Maybe you should go back to Yale and take a world geography class. I hear it's a good school, though it clearly doesn't teach basic respect." Ibrahim continued, now showing clear facts that completely broke down J.D. Vance's claims. "Mr. Vice President, since you enjoy comparisons, let's compare." The screen showed side-by-side charts. Burkina Faso's economy grew by 8.1% last year. Ohio's economy grew by 2.3%. Youth unemployment in Burkina Faso, 12%. In Ohio, 18%. Ibrahim gestured calmly. "You mocked African countries that can't power their capitals. Ouagadougou has had 24/7 electricity for 2 years. Columbus had 3 blackouts just this month. Each stat was a direct hit to Vance credibility. Now, let's talk about education. Since you went to Yale, he said, in the past 3 years, we've built 1,200 new schools. In the same time, Ohio closed 150 schools. Ibrahim paused for impact. You said we don't have proper internet, Mr. Vance. Well, this video is being broadcast live from our own digital studio to 67 countries. Simultaneously, our technology makes that possible. He smiled, now full of calm confidence. But let's get to what really matters, human progress. We've reduced infant mortality by 45%, raised life expectancy by 8 years, and lifted 2 million people out of poverty. 8 million people out of extreme poverty. The numbers kept coming, one after another. Ohio, with a budget 15 times bigger than ours, has failed to get similar results in any of these areas. Ibrahim leaned back in his chair. Mr. Vance, you wrote a book about poverty in America. Maybe you should write a new one about geographic ignorance too. The camera caught Ibrahim's cutting smile. And since you said we're a place that doesn't even appear on the map, I'd like to mention that Burkina Faso exports gold, cotton, and agritech to 34 countries, including some American states that buy our products without even knowing where they come from. The response was like surgery, precise, informative, and totally humiliating for Vance. As Ibrahim Traoré's video spread like wildfire online, reactions flooded in almost immediately. In less than hours, Traoré destroys Vance became a global trending topic, even beating sports and entertainment news. CNN correspondent Sarah Johnson tweeted, "Holy cow, Ibrahim Traoré just gave J.D. Vance the most educational beatdown in political history. Every fact checked out." BBC's James Mitchell didn't hold back. This isn't just a response. This is a masterclass in how to defeat ignorance using truth and dignity. At American universities, professors paused lectures to play the video. At Harvard's Kennedy School, a professor of international relations said, "Gentlemen, this is how modern diplomacy is done." Meanwhile, in Washington, panic hit the White House. Trump called an emergency meeting. "Jay, you didn't just mess up," he yelled. "You destroyed the ball, the field, and the stadium." Vance, clearly shaken, tried to defend himself. "Mr. President, how was I supposed to know he had all this data?" Trump was furious, his face bright red. "That's your job to know. This kid just made you look like a complete amateur." On American social media, people flooded with memes. One viral photo showed Vance's face edited onto a schoolboy getting scolded. Captioned, "When you think you're smart, but Ibrahim Traoré is your teacher." In Ohio, at Vance's political HQ, the mood was shameful. The Columbus Dispatch ran an editorial, "Our vice president has embarrassed us worldwide. It's time for a public apology." Ohio businessmen with ties to Africa began pressuring Vance. "You've hurt our business relationships with your tasteless jokes," said the CEO of a multinational company. In Burkina Faso, Ibrahim received an endless stream of congratulatory calls. Even French President Macron called, "Mon ami, you've given the world a lesson in class and intelligence." 3 days after Ibrahim Traoré's powerful response, J.D. Vance was facing the biggest political crisis of his life. Alone in his office in the Eisenhower Executive Building, he watched Traoré's video again and again, searching for any error. In the data, there were none. His top aide, Michael Stevens, entered carrying a stack of newspapers and a tablet full of scathing analysis. "Mr. Vice President," he said, "things are getting worse. The New York Times has published an editorial asking you to issue a public retraction. The Wall Street Journal is now questioning your foreign policy judgment." Vance ran his hands through his hair, clearly anxious. "What about the Republicans?" he asked. "How are they reacting?" "Split, sir," Stevens replied. "The moderates are pulling away. Marco Rubio said your insults hurt America's global image. Even Tucker Carlson admitted Traoré made you look unprepared. Things were only getting worse." On Fox News, conservative hosts argued on air. "I support Vance," said Sean Hannity, "but let's be honest, he really screwed this one up. This Ibrahim Traoré guy brought solid facts. It's embarrassing." At Ohio universities, students started protests, demanding that Vance stop disgracing the state. At Ohio State University, a protest gathered 3,000 people, holding signs that said, "Vance learned geography," and "Burkina who, Vance." Ignorance. The governor of Ohio, under pressure from his supporters, issued a public statement. "As governor, I do not support the vice president's comments. Ohio respects all nations and maintains good relations worldwide." American business leaders, with interests in Africa, began canceling meetings with officials. Chevron, which runs projects in Africa, released a statement. "We value all of our African partners and are sorry for any misunderstanding related to Burkina Faso." Meanwhile, Ibrahim Traoré kept receiving support from around the world. The African Union passed a resolution of solidarity. 48 African countries signed a joint letter, demanding a formal apology from Vance. "The way President Traoré handled this was outstanding," said the Secretary-General. 1 week after his public embarrassment, J.D. Vance hit the lowest point in his political life. His approval rating dropped from 52% to 31% in just 7 days. A Pew Research poll revealed that 67% of Americans thought his comments about Africa were inappropriate and embarrassing. Trump called Vance to the Oval Office for a serious talk. "JD, you've become an international joke," Trump said, clearly angry. Yesterday, the British Prime Minister asked if my Vice President really doesn't know geography. Vance tried to explain, "Mr. President, it was just a misunderstanding. I can fix it. Fix it," Trump shouted. "You got destroyed by a 36-year-old president using facts that even our analysts confirmed were accurate." Trump pointed to the TV. CNN was showing a side-by-side comparison between Ohio and Burkina Faso, created by Harvard economists. All of Ibrahim's numbers were correct, and some Burkina Faso indicators were even better than Ohio's. "Mr. President," Vance said nervously, sweat on his forehead, "what do you suggest I do?" "Humility, JD. Something Yale clearly didn't teach you." Meanwhile, on TV, comedians roasted Vance. On Saturday Night Live, the actor playing Vance was shown studying a globe with a magnifying glass, saying, "Burkina, Burkina, where the hell is that?" The audience burst out laughing. On social media, memes about Vance versus geography went viral. One video showed 10-year-old kids finding Burkina Faso on a map faster than Vance could say the name. At American universities, professors used the situation as a lesson in failed diplomacy. At Columbia University, students in international relations analyzed Ibrahim's reply as a perfect case study in African soft power. In Ohio, the pressure kept growing. At a public event in Cincinnati, protesters chanted, "Respect Africa." An African-American veteran walked up to Vance and said, "Sir, my ancestors came from Africa. Your comments were deeply offensive." After 2 weeks of non-stop pressure, J.D. Vance finally gave in a move that even his closest aides didn't expect. He said he would make a formal public apology about the incident with Ibrahim Traoré. "I can't take this anymore," he told his wife Usha. "This Burkina Faso president has crushed me gracefully. I have to swallow my pride." The White House scheduled a press conference for noon. Journalists from around the world gathered, knowing they were about to witness something historic. An American vice president publicly apologizing after being called out by an African leader. When Vance stepped up to the podium, he looked completely defeated. "Ladies and gentlemen of the press," he said, "I am here today to admit that I made a serious mistake." His voice trembled slightly. "My remarks about Burkina Faso and its president, Ibrahim Traoré, were ignorant, misinformed, and disrespectful." He paused, clearly embarrassed. After reviewing the data President Traoré presented, "I have to admit he was right about everything. Burkina Faso has achieved impressive progress, and I was completely unaware of it." The cameras recorded every second of his humiliation. "President Traoré clearly knows more about American data than I know about Africa, which is unacceptable for someone in my position." Vance took a deep breath. "So I offer a formal apology to the people of Burkina Faso, to President Traoré, and to all Africans who were hurt by my ignorant words." Then came the expected question from CNN's Sarah Johnson. "Mr. Vice President, how will you repair the damage to U.S.-Africa relations?" "I will travel to Burkina Faso next week," Vance replied, "to apologize in person to President Traoré and to learn firsthand about the progress I wrongly mocked." The room buzzed. This was unprecedented. An American vice president traveling to Africa to apologize to a leader he had insulted. In Ouagadougou, Ibrahim watched the press conference with his advisors. He was brave to admit his mistake. Ibrahim said generously, "We will welcome him with respect." Vance's trip to Burkina Faso became one of the most followed diplomatic events of 2025. When Air Force Two landed in Ouagadougou, a large crowd had gathered, eager to see the American vice president who had been humbled by their president. Ibrahim Traoré was at the airport, standing tall and calm, as Vance stepped off the plane. Visibly nervous, Ibrahim walked up to him with a warm, respectful smile. "Welcome to Burkina Faso, Mr. Vice President," he said. "We admire your courage in coming here." Vance, truly humbled for the first time in years, replied,